Welcome to another episode of Code Breakers, the podcast that empowers you to overcome life's challenges and tap into your full potential. I'm Sam, your host. This week, we're diving into metaphysics. Hang out with me. It'll be fun, and you'll walk away with some valuable tips for ensuring you stay in control of your life rather than allowing yourself to get stuck or staying stuck in victimhood. I'm making a big claim today that this episode will help you overcome having a victim mindset or any tendencies that you may have to fall into that trap, and instead focus on how setbacks can help you rediscover your mission and unlock abundance in all areas of your life. I genuinely believe if you stop taking offense to the things that knock you off your path, getting upset, being annoyed, mad, feeling like life is against you in any way, spending your time complaining when things don't go as planned. Granted, there's absolutely a need for a healthy amount of this. You know that I advocate for feeling our feelings. I'm just saying, don't stay stuck there. Be upset, vent, but then look at what are the circumstances or this event? What might they be teaching me about myself? What is this illuminating or clarifying? Addressing limiting beliefs or a victim-based mentality is not just about personal growth. It's also about aligning our energy with the reality we want to create. So how do you do this? Well, one way is through shadow work and integration, which is the process of exploring and addressing unconscious aspects of our fears, our traumas, and the limiting beliefs that come as a result of that. And as you become aware of these shadow aspects, you can integrate them into your conscious awareness and release their hold on your energy and your decision-making processes. And so integration is all about accepting these shadow aspects as part of your whole self, rather than suppressing or denying them. And this allows you to heal and transform and align your energy with a more empowered and authentic version of yourself. So as you engage in shadow work and integration, you gradually shift your vibrational frequency to resonate with the reality that you want to manifest. But step one is identifying the mindsets and beliefs that are holding you back from being able to do that right now, in this moment. So metaphysics, the study of reality and consciousness, the study of existence, and in this discipline, we ask questions about what's real and how things work beyond what we can see and touch. Metaphysical theories often suggest that everything in the universe is interconnected and underlined by a fundamental unity, which really blurs the distinction between the inner world and the outer world. This makes them perhaps more permeable and less rigid than maybe we once thought. In other words, how we see the world is influenced by our inner understanding and perspective. This is exactly what we're going to talk about today: the power of our mind and its impact on our reality. Real quick, just so we're on the same page, what is a victim mindset? It is this thought or this perception. It's a reality to you when you're in this mindset that everything is outside of your control. Maybe that the world is out to get you, nothing ever goes your way. And people that are stuck in a victim mindset really do perceive themselves as victims. They tend to have a pretty negative mindset, and they attribute their circumstances to external factors. Victim mindsets can come from all kinds of things like psychological conditioning, or in my case, kind of learning this woe is me mentality from my mother. I didn't realize that I had this tendency for a long time, but I have noticed, especially if my mental fitness, so too much stress, not enough self-care, I have to be extremely cognizant in those cases not to perceive things more negatively than they perhaps truly are. And if that's true for you too, if you don't get ahead of it, then it can become a spiral, right? Like things just continue to get worse and worse and worse from there. Ultimately, people with a victim mindset stay in that place, and they tend to perceive themselves as powerless, helpless, and entirely at the mercy of their circumstances or other people. They attribute difficulties and setbacks or failures to factors like fate, luck, or the actions of other people and fail to take responsibility for their own thoughts, beliefs, and actions. So having a victim mindset can come from conditioning, family dynamics, biases, social and cultural influences. The media can also perpetuate the idea that success or failure is largely determined by factors beyond our control. Or family environments that are overprotective or enable a lack of personal accountability. But I also want to take a moment and say that there are the very real elements of economic and political systems, socioeconomic disparities, systemic injustices, and unequal access to resources or opportunities, which can exasperate feelings of powerlessness and victimization, especially among historically marginalized folks, which probably deserves an episode of its own. But today we're going to focus on the fact that the world is a mirror and how you can utilize this to remind yourself that you are not a victim. Have you ever noticed your thoughts materializing in your reality somehow? Like maybe you think of a friend and they call you, or you imagine a successful presentation and it comes true, you completely nail it. Maybe you have manifested a parking spot or concert tickets. Do you chalk these things up to coincidence, or do you believe that you play an active role in shaping your reality? Personally, I hold the view that our thoughts and beliefs mold the world around us. I think the world acts as a mirror, reflecting what's within us, what we believe about ourselves and the world, and that this shapes the reality that we encounter on a daily basis. In the spiritual community, a lot of people say, like, the vibes are off, right? But the cool thing is that when this happens, there's usually something within you that you're mirroring or that they're mirroring back. It could be something to learn or something you need to integrate. But this concept that energy, everything in the universe, thoughts, emotions, everything emits a vibrational frequency. And this helps reinforce this notion that our inner world affects our outer world. So in terms of vibrational frequency, like attracts like, right? And opposites repel. So in this way, you could be doing all the affirmations, all the breath work, but if you still have a belief, a limiting belief somewhere, like in your shadow aspect, which a lot of us do, right? None of us are perfect. We're all growing and evolving. And this is the continuous process of life. But if you remember that every time this occurs, it is actually an opportunity, a gift even, for you to increase your conscious awareness of self and how you're perceiving not only you, but the world. And this is how transformation occurs. Plato said, we can change our reality by changing our minds. And one of my favorite Buddhist quotes is, rule your mind or it will rule you. I think regardless, there is clear evidence that observation, perception, alters and determines reality. So if we navigate life with a belief that everything is always going wrong, life tends to confirm that belief with reinforcing experiences. But alternatively, if we expect and have faith in and know that everything is always working out in our favor, then life tends to give us experiences to reinforce that belief too. So I guess whether you attribute it to coincidence, energetics, or something else, all I'll say is, in my experience, there is validity to the idea that our mindset shapes our reality. So how do we address this, our mindsets, with consideration for mental health factors like anxiety, depression, and legitimate chemical imbalances, as well as systemic barriers, like I mentioned earlier? Because in those situations, changing your mind isn't going to just solve those problems. So first things first, do what is needed in partnership with your care team to address those components. Because first and foremost, to overcome limiting beliefs and a victim mindset, you have to take care of your foundation, your immediate environment, your health. Like, are you safe? Are your basic needs taken care of? Because it's pretty damn hard to worry about having a positive mindset when you're worried about basic necessities like food, water, and electricity, or just making it through the day. So this whole episode and this whole conversation is all assuming that those things are well taken care of, and now you are well on your way to living your best life. Now you are just learning how to work with your inner critic and that negative self-talk that is affecting every part of your life, maybe whether you realize it or not. So you're learning to work with that voice and you're learning to overcome it. This is a good time to also say that this conversation is predicated on the acknowledgement, support, and trust that marginalized experiences are valid and that systemic barriers do still exist. So while we're talking about mindset, perceptions, reality, and how it's all connected, know that this is in addition to people, leaders, and every one of us taking part in addressing the very real systemic barriers that exist today. It has become clear to me in the last couple of years, the last 5 years, and now as I look back on the entirety of my life, it has become so clear to me how even some of the people who might be considered, supporting characters have played such a critical role in my personal evolution and growth. When I look back on experiences or relationships that were difficult for me, or experiences that I absolutely detested going through, or people that at one point in my life I was angry or disappointed with, or just simply didn't like for one reason or another, I now understand these experiences were for my own growth and development. Given the goals and intentions I have set, the universe corresponds to the frequency of your vibration. The energetics begin responding with events and people to aid in my development of skill, will, and consciousness. And I need to elevate in each of those areas to obtain or to become the version of myself that has the life I'm imagining and actively trying to create. You'll be so much better off when you realize that every single one of those people are showing you something about yourself that you either have not accepted, have not overcome, have not come to terms with, or you simply were not prepared to accept about yourself, your reality, or your personality, your character, and how you're living in the world at that moment in time. And in the moment when those feelings come up, recognize these circumstances for the gift that they are. A lot of times, this is when we end up not liking someone and saying, I don't know what it is, I just don't like them. Or maybe, you're not being honest with yourself. There is probably part of you underneath that is activated by something that they are demonstrating or embodying. So from a growth perspective and in pursuit of living undivided, it is our job to figure out where is this coming from and make friends with it. I think the other foundational element here is that everything is interconnected. And this unity that underlies all existence is where I see the beauty in recognizing that in another timeline, I could have been you and vice versa. This thought process first began for me when I read the book Radical Forgiveness by Colin Tipping. And this concept kind of originates around the idea that before reincarnating in this lifetime, we all come to agreements with the souls that we are going to cross paths with in this physical reality in order to learn certain lessons. And when we make those decisions, we also agree to the roles that we're each going to play. So not only do we agree on the story and the lessons, but we agree who's going to play what role. And this became really profound for me in the context of healing from childhood narcissistic abuse, living in a drug-addicted household, and all of the additional trauma and traumatic experiences that come along with that. When I read Radical Forgiveness and positioned myself from the mindset of, what if I chose to come to this lifetime and play the role that she, my mother, has played in my life? All of a sudden, the concept of forgiveness, which was something I didn't even want to consider for her or for my abuser, and I somehow felt shame about that, all of a sudden forgiveness wasn't necessary for my healing to feel complete. And I don't consider myself having forgiven them, but I'm no longer angry either, which is a really liberating place to be. I don't forgive them, but I have compassion. Compassion for their journey, compassion for the pain that they probably carry, knowing what they did, compassion for their own stories, their own experiences that led them to the situations, the mindsets, the habits, and the beliefs that took them down this path. When I began to consider that, it taught me a lot. When I was able to finally remove anger from it and start living from a place of compassion, I started to move away from victimhood, and I started to recognize, in the most neutral, helpful way possible, I began to realize the benefits that I could pull from all these horrendous experiences and the strength that I developed through them. And I want to talk about this because I think one of the biggest barriers to understanding the world as a mirror is having a victim mentality. If you see yourself as a victim, you relinquish your power to external circumstances, basically meaning that you are foregoing any power you have over the situation. Recognizing this mentality, if and when it comes up, is the first step toward empowerment. And this is all about taking responsibility for our thoughts, beliefs, and actions, rather than allowing ourselves to be defeated by the stories we've been told and continue to tell ourselves based on external factors. Now, again, there are a number of things here. Systemic factors that other people may not recognize, see, understand, and yet your experience is still totally valid. But because two things can be true at once, I'd also invite you to reflect on, what is this highlighting for you in terms of growth, opportunities? What can you control? Well, you can control your mindset. So what is your mindset telling you about this situation? There are a number of things that could be true, but ultimately their perception and your perception, their energy and your energy are colliding for one reason or another. And every time that occurs, it is an opportunity for you to increase your conscious awareness of yourself and of the world. So what is coming up with this belief? What are the stories that you're telling yourself or that are being reinforced? And how does that resonate with the person you're trying to be now? And this is super critical for moving forward, what is the preferred alternative? And asking yourself that question, asking yourself how you'd rather be thinking about this scenario, this situation, this challenge, this event, this circumstance. That is how you start breaking out of a victim mindset, by looking for what you can control, how you want to respond, and considering how that's aligned with who you want to be and how you want to show up in this world. So in general, to let go of the victim mentality, to take control of your life and start implementing real change. Seek diverse perspectives. Don't get tunnel vision and only surround yourself with people who tell you you're right all the time. Surround yourself with people who will hold you accountable and hold you to higher standards. Consume content that promotes resilience, agency, and empowerment. Hi, right here. Encourage open communication and foster a sense of autonomy and self-efficacy with your children, and avoid enabling behaviors, please. Support politicians and policies that address systemic barriers and help empower marginalized communities. This helps address structural inequalities and promote collective empowerment. And I also want to emphasize this. If you want to break out of the victim mindset or verify that you are not in that mindset, this will be your gut check. Are you taking responsibility for your own thoughts, beliefs, and actions? If not, you need to think about how you begin to. You need to take responsibility for the shit in your life, and if you don't like something, reflect on it. What do you have the power to change? If you don't like someone, reflect on it. What are they teaching you about yourself? And if you don't like the situation you're in and how it's going, reflect on it. What are you going to do differently next time? What are you learning from this scenario? Reflecting on these things through the lens of what role am I playing here? How are my perceptions affecting the dynamic of how this situation is evolving? Then, based on those reflections, those learnings, and your values and long-term vision, make intentional choices towards your desired outcome. Control what you can control. Be part of the solution. As we wrap up today's episode, I encourage you to reflect on this idea that the world is a mirror and think about ways in which you are not taking ownership of your reality. And then choose to embrace empowerment and watch as your external world transforms. Remember, you have the power to break your own code, shape your reality, and rewrite your story. Thank you for joining me today. We'll see you next week.